Not every trucking story is about success. Some are about frustration, some are about burned bridges. And if we're being honest, every driver listening here knows someone or has been there themselves. Today's episode isn't about perfection, it's about accountability, reality, and what it takes to move forward. This is Drivers First. You're on with J and J. I'm John. This is Justin. How you doing, Justin?
Doing well, sir.
Good. We're excited to have Ron on with us.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where do you reside? What got you into trucking and things like that?
I reside in Phoenix, Arizona, and been living here for pretty much right around 30 years now. Probably about 7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago it was. I was in the carpet cleaning business for quite a long time, and carpet cleaning in Phoenix kind of went down the drain due to I'll just say abomination, but I won't get into it. But anyway, yeah, it was horrible. And so I sat down with myself at the computer one morning, and I'm going to be honest with you. You might think I'm crazy. I don't know. But anyway, I was sitting at the computer just checking things out, and 5 minutes in, and I heard a soft voice speak into my right ear, like somebody was standing right next to me, whispering in my ear. I'm not kidding you. And all it said was, "You need to go trucking." And I flipped. I flipped out. I'm like, it sounded like a real person standing right next to me. And I'm looking all around. There's nobody around.
Mhm.
I was inside my
Had to
house,
call him.
So, obviously I was supposed to go trucking. And so everything, in the beginning, everything kind of sort of fell into place. I didn't have the money to go to trucking school. And then I met this guy out of the blue, and he just said, "Hey, did you hear about Arizona at Work? They're doing grants for trucking, and they need drivers, and blah blah blah." And so I said, "Yeah, yeah, I've applied for grants in the past, never got them. So yeah, whatever." Long story short, 6 months later, I had this like spiritual knocking at my door, if you will, within me. And it just kept pushing me. And so I finally, one day, I just said, "Oh, what the heck? I'm going to call up Arizona at Work and see." I called them up and everything. And I'm not kidding you, man. that day, that day, talked to this lady. And I says, "Yeah, some guy told me that you guys were doing, grants for truckers and blah, blah, blah." And she said, "Oh, yeah." She says, "We actually have a meeting starting tonight at 6 p.m."
Oh, wow.
I'm
Wow.
like,
I didn't know
"Would
there
you
were
like to
grants for
come?"
truckers.
I didn't either.
Oh,
That
Do you know if any of those
yeah.
exist still today, Ron? Or
I doubt it. I doubt it. But this was right, 2018, 2017,
okay.
2017.
okay.
So right around there. Yeah, it was at the end of 2017. So she asked me if I wanted to come, and I said, "Definitely, sign me up." And so I went there that night, and I got in there, and there's, several of the people heading up the meet, or whatever you want to call it. And there's this one black lady. She was always giving me like an evil eye, if you will. I mean, she just, I don't know. It's like she didn't like me for some odd reason. I didn't, never even talk to her. So, but whatever. At the end of the class and everything, they asked us if we want to continue, to fill out the paperwork, blah, 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 which I did. And so then I got called, like a week later, and they said, "Well, your assigned counselor is so and so," and it was that black lady from the meeting, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm not going to get in." Anyway, so there again, another long story. So anyway, I met up with her at the unemployment office, and she had an attitude against me and everything, and I'm just like, God, I'm just trying to keep my cool with her, and because I needed to do this, and she gave me all the stuff. She was telling me all the stuff, and then as time went by, she started getting nicer to me, and she said, "Just fill out this paperwork and blah blah blah," and she says, "Make sure you do it completely, and then take this home and fill all this stuff out, and then we'll schedule another appointment for you to come back." I got back that day, and her whole attitude changed. She was super cool, and I showed her that I could do it, and I had all the paperwork filled out except for one page. I had a question on the, and she actually helped me fill that out. And then we went through the whole process, and then she had to talk to the higher ups and blah blah blah. She came back and she goes, "I really shouldn't do this, but," she goes, "I'm going to grant you." Excuse me. I still feel the emotion.
Oh, because she gave you
Oh,
she approved
gave
you for
you
grants.
gave
She
you your break.
approved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And you didn't even have any money to get started up, and she,
No, I didn't have a dime.
yeah, I don't think you're typically paid during school, so
Oh,
that's a great
No,
program. I
you're
don't,
not. You pay you have to pay them. So it was
yeah,
$7,600 and some dollars to
wow,
take that course.
yeah.
And so Arizona at Work paid for it. So anyway, so she told me that once you get a job, and I told her where I wanted to go and everything. So they put in the request, and I chose Creek Carrier out of Lincoln, Nebraska. And so they set it up for that.
I want to get into the jobs, and I want to get into some of the difficulties you've gone through. But
Yeah.
where did you grow up? Where, what was your family life like?
I grew up in St. Paul, Minnesota. Later on, when I was in my teens, we moved to Roseville, which is still like a suburb of St. Paul. But anyway, so I grew up in a family that, it was okay. It wasn't a bad family, but I was the black sheep of the family. And they even told me that. So I always had to set the example. They said, "You're the oldest of the family. You have to set the example." And anytime somebody would do something wrong, I would be punished because I
Yeah,
didn't set the proper example. So
that happens a
yeah, it
lot
was
with older
yeah,
siblings.
it does.
yeah,
It
it was a
does.
nightmare. So, but I ended up
Well,
becoming a cleaner later on in life because people always ask me, why the frick did you become a cleaner? My mom was a white glove lady, and she would make me and my sister clean the kitchen before we could ever go out and do anything. And literally, I mean, you had to literally pull out the refrigerator and clean the baseboards and all that kind of stuff every single freaking night. So
wow.
it was a nightmare, but I learned how to clean. So everybody that asks me, why did you become a cleaner? I said,
Hmm.
I was trained perfectly. Why wouldn't I? You
Well,
know?
You learned your lessons, right?
that's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Well, with that growing up experience with your family, how did that shape you as a person, for better or for worse?
I don't know. I mean, I think that I did pretty dang well coming through all that. For the most part, overall, even though I'm the brokest one in the family, but they always say like the smart people end up broke. But I think I'm one of the more intelligent ones of my entire family. I mean, my dad was pretty smart. He was a foreman of a metal shop, and then my parents owned several businesses throughout our lives. We had movies to go video in St. Paul, Minneapolis area for several years, and we were one of the leaders before Hollywood Video came in. And then after that, Blockbuster came in and ruined it for us guys. But without that experience of my parents owning several businesses, I probably wouldn't even be where I'm at today.
Well, it sounds like entrepreneurship is really in your blood.
It
Yep.
is. It
Yeah.
is. I own my own carpet cleaning business for, 20 some years. And I worked for other companies in the beginning, but then I got my own equipment and
Hmm.
started my own company. And I did pretty dang well for many years until Obama got in. That destroyed my business. It destroyed a lot of, I mean, in
Hmm.
here in Phoenix, you go down the main road, which is Cave Creek Road, through, North Phoenix, and you see every other business was shut down.
Well, and it happened with me as well, Ron. I had an exotic lumber business, and during the Obama 8 years, it finally put it to where we couldn't even do business anymore. So let's get into your trucking experience a little bit. Me and John's known you for a little bit. We known you've had probably what you could say a rough year. In 2025, trying to find the right place to work. I know you were an owner operator. You had told me not long ago that your truck had went down. But let's talk about your driving career to try to maybe help another driver that may be going through the same thing, or a new driver that has not experienced that yet, that maybe you can shed some light.
I'm a worker. I want to keep running. And the biggest issue I've had was with dispatchers leaving me sit 2 to 4 days out in La La Land where you can't do anything and you're twiddling your thumbs and you feel like you're in a jail cell because you can't really go do anything. I mean, you can go for a walk, but I don't even like walking in truck stops because of it's the foreigners that are racing through the parking lot 30 miles an hour or whatever they're doing. And they don't care. They don't look out for anything. And then they run into things and I've seen so many places where they stopped allowing trucks to park because I don't know if it's all foreigners, but I've seen it several times. But like Walmart, Walmart was closing up the truck parking area that they had in Missouri off the I-44. I got there the day they were closing it, and they actually let me still park in there for that day. But he said, "Don't come back because we're not allowing trucks anymore." And I said, wow. And he showed me all the damage that they had from drivers running into things. And I'm just like, dude, I'm not going to do that. I mean, that's craziness, but they don't care because they don't really even have a real CDL. So I have to protect mine. So that's been pretty much the biggest issue for me is dispatchers not keeping me busy. But what I can say to guys in a sense, to sum that part up is, as far as working with companies, do your ultimate best to not job hop. But then again, for me, it's been several times where I've been forced to leave because if I can't stay busy, then I'm bugging the company and I'm saying, hey, man, I need to get running. And if the company doesn't like it, they boot you out the door. What are you going to do? So what I say to guys, don't panic. Find the freaking company. Do your research. Find the company that you think you're going to be able to stay with. And no matter what comes down the pipe, deal with it in the best way that you possibly can to stay on board with that company. At least do a company for 6 months to a year. And I know this from talking to companies now of what they require. When I have, like 8 companies under my belt in the last 3 years, and I've applied recently for like close to 40 companies. I've gotten turned down by almost every single one because of it. And I only have 2 companies right now that are considering me. But I actually drove all the way out to Goodyear to go meet with them.
Hey, we talk about that all the time on our shows that, as an owner operator, which you've been, or a company driver, you're your own business. You're your own representation of yourself. So kudos for you to
Right,
go out and drive and do a personal appearance to show who you are and you're hungry to go
right.
to work. I mean, that's a lot of drivers wouldn't do that. So, definitely bravo for
Yeah.
that because you can only sell yourself just like we say all the time. If you're in a truck and you're at a carrier, do the little extra things that gets you noticed, and it just the same incentive. If you do something bad, that gets you negative noticed, and you don't want that. So you can only represent yourself, which then represents whoever's on the side of your door. So
Yeah.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely, that's a good approach.
Yeah. So I mean they changed their mind and they're reconsidering me now. So that's a cool thing.
You and I have talked about this in the past, and kudos to you for kind of, stepping up and realizing some of the mistakes you've made and being a voice to those drivers out there that might say to themselves, just like I'm sure you have in the past, if I don't stand my ground, I'm going to get walked on. How important is it just, to maintain composure, have a good attitude on the job and really try and find a compromise to work together with that dispatcher,
Well,
that carrier.
yeah. I mean, a good attitude is always good to have. It's just that, when you're sitting around not working, it kind of, for me anyway, it stirs me. And I've got to get that stir to mellow out. And so what I do is I contact the company and say, hey, man, I need to get running. And if they don't run you, then what are you going to do? That's where a lot of guys think, oh, I'll just find another company. But if you do that, you're going to have too many companies under your belt. But I don't know. For me, if I was going to recommend anything to people, is I would say, do your best to stay with that company as long as you possibly can. If you have to sit for 4 days once, it's okay. If you have to sit for 4 days 3 times, I mean, then maybe something needs to be done. So, because we're out here to work. We're not out here to sit on our rears. I mean, maybe some guys are. I don't know. I've seen trucks in truck stops where I go out, I run out for a week, I come back, and that guy's still sitting in the same parking spot. I'm like, what the heck? And I mean, maybe he's just taking a vacation at the truck stop.
Speaking of dispatchers, let me get your thoughts on this. So when you're hired at one of these companies, are you getting to speak to a dispatcher during the process, or are you handed a dispatcher after the fact? Because I would like to know, like, what is that first conversation that you have with that dispatcher about what you're looking for, your do's and don'ts, and then when a dispatcher asks you certain questions, like, having some flexibility. How does those first conversations go, and when do you have that first kind of conversation to know if that's a place you want to go to?
Yeah, that's been an issue because most of the companies that I've been with do not allow you to talk to the dispatchers ahead of time. Some of them do, not all of them. And, I think really at this point with my experience that if you get into a company and they won't let you talk to the dispatchers, you're better off to move on right then and there because you need to get a good handle on where you're going and knowing having a good knowing. You can't know 100%, there's no way, but
Yeah.
you have a good feeling, I should say, about the company you're about to join, because if it doesn't work out, that's another company under your belt. And the problem with it is most of the companies that I've talked to say that it takes $4,000 to $5,000 out of their pocket to bring in one driver. And so if it's costing $4,000 to $5,000 to bring in that driver, they're going to make sure that they're not bringing in a guy that's going to job hop.
Right.
So yeah, and that's the problem.
One thing I'd like to talk to you about is, we all know is trucking is a lot smaller than what, a lot of people think, even though there's thousands of carriers and thousands of trucks on the road. Do,
Right.
do you think as a driver, does your repetition, help me out here, John.
Reputation. That's all
Thank you.
right. Reputation.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Do you think would follow you or has followed you or, with you working? Because there's a lot of companies that are sister companies or cousins, where, they might use the same platforms and different things. Do you think that follows a driver?
Most of the companies that I've been with have been pretty good in that regard. They haven't put a lot of stuff on my DAC record.
Ron, explain real quick for our listeners who don't know, what is a DAC record?
It's the record where companies can leave notes about you. Where other companies can check, and then they'll determine. If there's bad things on there, they'll determine whether they're going to hire you, bring you in or not.
So it's basically like almost like a diary of your experience.
Pretty much,
Yeah.
pretty much. It's whatever the companies want to put on there. One of my favorite companies that I've ever worked for, which was Carolina Logistics out of North Carolina, or Logistic. It was singular. I always gave them crap for that. Oh, your name is Logistic. I can only carry one pallet at a time. Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. So I worked there for a year and a half. That's besides Free Carrier, they were the longest I've worked for out of all my companies because the dispatcher was super cool. And I'll never forget that guy. He was a Ukrainian, and he was dispatching me from the Ukraine. And but he spoke perfect English. I told the guy, I said, "Man, you could easily pass for American." I said, "You speak better than some of the Americans." But anyway, he kept me busy. I mean, very rare did I ever sit around with that guy, and he liked me too. And, because he knew I like to talk sometimes, and he would just call me up to say, "Hey man, I got some time. Let's chat. What do you want to chat about?" And stuff like that, and he gave me some time. He cared. And anyway, at the end of the year and a half, I was going to move over to JB Hunt, and that's another story.
What do you feel like carriers could do to lower their turnover rate? Because turnover is ridiculously high in trucking.
It is. It is.
Applying for a trucking job isn't like applying for anybody else. There's
No.
your credential. They look at your safety record, of course, and yes, your credentials, but you don't get hired like a typical employee of another company where where you're paid based on your previous experience. It's all basically, like we stated before, the rates have never changed. So they go up and down, and ebbs and flows,
Yeah,
and
they
it's like a
they
roller
go
coaster
up and
ride.
down.
So,
Yeah.
what would you say carriers could do to help lower their turnover?
Really, the number one thing is to not treat a driver like a number. You're like your truck number. You got to treat a driver with respect, because if the drivers are the gold to this industry, without drivers, you don't have an industry. It's
You're right.
gone.
You're right.
So the
Very true.
drivers, they do so much for this country, that they just, even if they screw up, they still deserve respect,
Yeah, it's a
because
tough job, isn't it?
It
it
is.
is an extremely tough job. And then when you're getting yelled at by everybody, holy crap, man. That's why a lot of guys, they just leave the business. They just get out. And I just was on a forum with some guys that were saying, man, they couldn't take it anymore. They had to get out. And we talked about a few different things on there because it was a live chat. But
Hmm.
anyway,
So what makes you want to stay in? Why do you want to stay
Well,
in it?
I don't know, man. It's if the pay is there, I'm good. If the pay is not there, then I still like trucking, but and it's kept me in because I'm a fighter. I fought my way through these last 4.5 years of the downturn. And I like I was going to say before, I came into this business and I started January 9th of 2019 for Creek Carrier. Got my license in 2018, but and then when I went owner operator, that's when COVID started. So in February, I got my truck 2020. That's when I got my first truck, and I leased onto Crete because I figured, well, I already know these guys. I don't know the business that well, but I know these guys. I know how they run, so I'm just going to lease onto them. And that's because some guys were telling me that's the best thing to do. So I did it, but I didn't make any more money as a company driver or as an owner operator with Crete than I did when I was company. And then how they treated you as a owner operator is like you're nothing but a company driver that just happens to own your own equipment.
Well, speaking of, you was talking about a minute ago about being yelled at. Maybe explain a little bit of that to our listeners that are not really truck drivers. I mean, because let's face it, you get it from the company side, right? You got your carrier you're working for, they're down your throat. Your dispatcher gets down your throat, and then you get on the highway, right? And no one gives a truck driver any respect on the highway.
No, they don't.
I was driving down Interstate 40 last night, and it was evident that, people just all they're doing is giving the truckers grief when they're just trying to work in traffic. I mean, they're driving something four times the size of my car, and they're trying to weave in through rush hour traffic. Can you speak a little bit on, how you have to deal with that with stress and different things? Not only you trying to make a living and pay your bills and get from point A to point B and trying to make everybody happy, and then you deal with, with the non-courtesy drivers.
Yeah, well, that's a work in progress, let me tell you. And I have been working on myself with that because, all you're going to do is stir up your own stress and it causes health issues. But then, I actually went in and talked to a pastor about it. And then I also study metaphysics online, with like spiritual counselors and different things like that. But what someone else does is really not part of you. Even though you have to deal with it, you've got to let it go because if you don't, it's only going to hurt you. It's not hurting the other
Well,
person
I
because
can't
they're
tell you,
already.
Ron, and from the day I met you, you've come a long way, and for you to say
Yes.
that and recognize that and take accountability says a lot about your character. And
I
that's
agree.
I gotta say, just that comment right there. I mean, that's when I first met you, probably a little over a year ago, you were nowhere near where you are today. So kudos to you for stepping up and addressing that.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
I agree 100%.
Well, life's a brick road, and some bricks are taller than the others,
Well,
and
that's
you got to
right.
learn to get over them.
Yeah,
So
well said. There are drivers listening who have been exactly where you are. They're struggling. They can't seem to get along with anybody. Their dispatcher, their carrier. They've jumped to another carrier. What mistakes should they avoid? What's worth swallowing their pride over?
it's really just taking a handle of yourself. Like my parents always used to say, pick your battles, pick your battles. Don't, you can't fight them all. So just pick the ones that you can and deal with it. But like a driver drives by you and flips you off, and guess what? You can smile and wave at them. That will piss them off more than flipping them back.
Kill them with kindness,
So
right?
That's right. Yep.
that's right. Yep.
Hey, I'm curious. I do want to get your opinion on something because it is kind of like how Ready App was formed. And you said you've applied to 40 jobs
Yep.
in the last how long? How long? I mean, what, the last couple
In the
months you've
last
applied?
week.
Oh, in the last week you've
Week.
applied to 40
Wow.
jobs. So we
That's
talk about
correct.
application fatigue at Ready App. It's a problem that I recognized when I had my trucking agency. And it's a problem I've been trying to solve for the last couple of years. And I think we've got a solid platform. So I'm just curious, what is that process like for you filling out application after application after application, uploading
Yeah.
documents over and over and over again? Where if we provided a system for drivers which we have alive now on Ready App, where You fill out one DOT application, you upload your documents, and then you have a profile, and you can essentially apply for multiple jobs within a few clicks. How much would that make an impact on on your day where you could, essentially apply to 40 jobs and, hopefully you don't have to apply to that many jobs, but you could essentially apply to 40 jobs within, 10 to 15 minutes, not
Right.
likely a few hours.
For me to apply for these companies, it was also doing research in between all of them because I don't want to apply for companies I don't want to be with. But most of these companies use the Intella app, and so by HireRight and or the Pulse app.
But you have to do a new application each time, correct?
Yeah, it's for each and every job. So it takes me about 10 minutes to fill it out for each and every job. And then if they require, your license front and back, your medical card, and your social security card, and sometimes they ask for full medical.
But correct me if I'm wrong, Ron, that's not stored in the Intel app, correct? You've got to
No,
manually
not
put that.
that, not the paperwork. No.
That takes time if you don't do that. A lot of drivers don't even do that part. They'll wait until that onboarder calls, and then you got to
Right.
round up. Now with you, you're applying to so many jobs frequently here lately. You've got all that information right in front of you. But that's one thing that I will say that Ready App really has changed my even mindset in recruiting and onboarding is because everything is right there for you. Your CDL,
Right.
your medical card. It'll even send an email to you if your CDL's fixing to expire. So that I think is a huge thing for somebody that's looking all the time or just wants to keep all their documents in one. That's one thing that I would definitely say is definitely a step up in the game that Ready App is offering.
Yeah, you said it takes you 10 minutes to fill out an application, right?
For each company.
For each
Yeah.
company. So
Right.
if it takes you 10 seconds as opposed to 10 minutes,
I mean, it would be super cool if you could apply for 40 companies with a click of a button.
you just said it right there. I mean, that's what I'm trying to get across. Even though you have most of the information saved in that application, still take 10 minutes to go through each individual one for 40 different
Right.
companies. If you can do
Yes.
that through Ready App with just, a click of a button, which you're able to do, how much easier does that make your life?
Oh, for sure. Way easier. I mean, I didn't know about that, so I mean, I would have probably used it if I knew about it.
Well, it's getting
So
out there. Go to ready-app.com and you can download it. Keep all your information stored in one place. Your DOT application done. It highlights your employment gaps. You can go in and easily update information. It keeps it all stored in there for you, so you can apply for jobs with just a few clicks.
And
So
it also keeps up with who you've applied with. If you've applied to a company 3 months ago and you got denied or for some reason or another, it already shows us you don't have, you've already used that company. And then if you want to reapply, like I said, it takes 10 seconds. One thing I want to say to you, Ron, kind of piggyback off what John said. I've known you for over a year as well. I appreciate you coming on and being honest today. And I'm very proud of you as well. Your outlook in life and trucking has changed tremendously in the last 12 months that I've known you. And one thing that we want to do here with the Driver First podcast is, in my opinion, truck drivers do not communicate very well with each other. You're all kind of independent contractors or independent workers, and there's not a community where you really learn from other drivers. So it's kind of like what you just said. It's you kind of have to learn the hard way. And if we can help reach one person today with this show that maybe takes a breath, as you said, and doesn't get him in that position, it's well worth it. And I truly appreciate it, and I'm very proud of the truck driver that you're becoming. So thank you again for coming on today, for sure.
yeah, no problem.
and I hope, there's, a driver listening or a carrier listening that can see what kind of person you are. I think Justin and I saw that from the beginning and tried to get you to where you are now, and it's just taking some time. But you're not making excuses, and I think you deserve another chance. And I hope there's the right carrier out there that's listening and is willing to give you that chance and give yourself a good shot for success. So thanks for coming on today. This was Drivers First on Trucker Talk Radio. Real stories, real accountability, and as you can see, real growth. drive safe. Okay.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.